Welcome back. This is Monica Zukas here with Reality Check. I've got John Shadowens here with me this evening. He's written a book called Legacy Lost, Cultural Erosion, Social Isolation, and the Effect on Children and Families at Risk. This is an important book. It's an easy-to-read book, and it's a light bulb goes off in your head book when you read it. You're like, wow, there are things wrong with our society, and when it comes down to it, you can't blame it on the president, you can't blame it on anybody else but ourselves as community members and parents. This thing is a trolley off the tracks, and the only way at the end of the day we're going to get it back on the tracks is to take responsibility for ourselves. Early on in the book, I started reading about the brain and the development of the brain and the different things that go on in the brain and the times of these children's life where their brain is developing. Now, before we even get into like substance abuse and drugs and alcohol added to this unformed or underdeveloped or not fully developed brain, there's a lot of stuff going on in the brain.
There is. In fact, once I got this, and this is something that I really only picked up in the last few years, but, you know, all of us as parents or concerned family members or friends, we've all seen those kids where we go, man, you're smarter than this. You make good grades. You make A's in school. Why are you continuing to make these same mistakes? Why are you doing the same stupid thing over and over and over again? Well, I learned this whenever I was in college, but it was good to go back and review the basics of brain development. And once I kind of refamiliarized myself with it, I had a light bulb go off with me. The last part of the child's brain to develop is the prefrontal cortex. That's the part that's kind of behind the eyes. It's the first third part of the gray matter of your brain. The gray matter's there. You have the mass of the brain that's there from infancy, and it grows with you. But the wiring in that part of the brain doesn't happen until late elementary school, and then through junior high, and then all the way through about age 24, 25.
So a normal child in a perfectly fine home with parents, and there's no major conflict or trauma or, you know, going back and forth to another parent's house where things are going on over there. Just the normal, what we consider normal, where there's nothing major externally going on. This is a crucial development time.
It is, and what's most important about this, to know about the prefrontal cortex, is this is the part of the brain that is responsible for logical sequences. You know, this comes before this, and that comes after that. It is not only sequential thought, but consequential thought. So if I do this, the most likely outcome would be X or Y. It's also the moral reasoning part, the part of us that says, I would like to do this, but I probably should do that. That's the prefrontal cortex. And it's the part that learns from its mistakes. And it's the part that maturity comes out of. Well, because that comes along at that window, that is also, ironically, the same time where kids start to experiment with drugs and alcohol, or where kids are experiencing a lot of trauma. That's about the age band where a lot of parents divorce, or where physical abuse has taken place, or some other traumatic event. Well, what we've learned is the brain's very sensitive to trauma, and any trauma that happens there can freeze the brain, or if it doesn't freeze it, it will stunt its development. Now, the other thing that's happening is there's a superconductor sort of film that covers the brain in this early adolescence
Myelation?
period. Yeah, it's called myelin.
I learned something from the book.
Yeah, there
Myelation.
You go. And that can be stunted by trauma or, you know, by substance abuse or any number of things. Sedentary lifestyle is another one. If you've got a kid that all they ever do is sit on the couch and play video games.
That's not okay.
Well, you know, there's a lot of researchers wanting to argue that helps with coordination and strategy and stuff.
So it doesn't take the place of good old going outside and playing.
And making friends and, you know, socially interacting and that sort of stuff. That part of the brain can shut down. And I learned this, you know, working with some friends of mine that were in recovery, that once they got free of drugs and alcohol, even though they were fully grown adults, when you find out that they had a serious amount of trauma whenever they were a teenager, they kind of got stuck there.
So even though they're sober, they're still acting like a 14-year-old,
exactly.
And you're here 40 going, what's wrong with you?
Right, and the problem-solving ability is still about the same as an average.
Will it ever come?
It can. The good news is that it can develop, but it grows a lot slower in adulthood than it does in kids. It's one of the reasons that we really need to be paying a lot more attention to kids these days, because this is the time of life where your brain is way more flexible in your childhood and early adolescent years than it will ever be again. And so by the time you're 40 or 50, if you start trying to piece that back together,
it's kind of like, eh.
It'll work, but it's just a longer road, and it takes a lot more discipline.
You know, my dad's a health and wellness lunatic. He's a chiropractor, but he has been promoting health and wellness forever. You know, it's common for people to be on 10 to 12 prescription medications as you get older, but it's not normal. Our body was designed to be healthy, not to be on all these prescription medications. And one of the studies he recently read said 40% of today's youth will not outlive their parents if they keep the sedentary lifestyle and eating the way they do.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very scary because I had somebody in the field actually hit me to this, that every drug, its purpose is to rewire the brain. Any drug that you take that's psychoactive in any sort of way, whether it's smoking pot, drinking alcohol, cocaine, heroin, whatever it is, what it is doing is it's messing with the biochemical balance in your head, serotonin, norepinephrine, adrenaline, and it's basically giving you a false sense of a high, of what we would call a high. It's basically artificially manufacturing some sort of
like
a feel-good experience.
Forcing your brain to give off more of the feel-good stuff or something?
Right.
Okay.
That's one of the things about methamphetamine that's so powerful. It floods your brain with dopamine. And so
you're happy.
Oh, you're very happy, and then you're very euphoric. And it shuts off the uptake mechanisms because you only have so much of this chemical in your brain anyway. So you take a drug like ecstasy or meth or whatever, and it floods your brain with this euphoria.
Then you're out.
Yeah, and your brain's supposed to suck it back up and hold on to it for the next pleasurable experience. And, you know, God kind of gave you that naturally anyway. So when you eat a good meal or you're out during the sunshine.
I can feel you on the food, Italian, yeah.
Or, you know, you go for a run or whatever, your body naturally has a feel-good euphoria, but then it goes away. Well, that's your body preserving that. Well, drugs manipulate that so it floods you and then shuts it off so you kind of swim in that for a while.
Right.
But you get what's called anhedonia on the backside, is if those chemicals stay in your brain long enough, they dissipate. And then oftentimes your body doesn't make any more.
Ew, that's scary.
It is. Well, one of the things they found about ecstasy was a lot of people thought it was very harmless until they started looking at the club scene, and they had a phenomenon called Tuesday morning suicides. Because, well, what was happening is you would get these kids on Friday night, they would take ecstasy, pump their bodies full of this, and they would kick it all day Saturday and Saturday night. They're raving all weekend. Sunday, they're on the come down. Monday, they don't feel good, but by Tuesday,
they're so depressed.
Yeah, their brain is just empty of anything that would make them feel good. And so no matter what, there's no interest in sleep, no interest in food, no interest in any sort of pleasurable activity. And this desperation was set in, and oftentimes it was an unrecoverable downward spiral for some users.
That's scary. And a lot of parents these days, and I just got to be blunt about it, want to be their children's buddy.
Yeah.
I don't know where this comes from. I don't know what you're thinking of if you're one of these parents, but you are not doing your child any favors if you want to be a friend. I'd like to say that, yeah, my daughter and I were friends, but I've always been mom first. The answer is no. And I've had, fellow friends of mine tell me about their children. Well, I don't want them to be mad. I mean, they might get upset. And I'm like, I really don't care if you're upset. If the answer is no, because this is not what's best for you, it's HELL, no.
Our biggest problem, and this is where I get on my soapbox a little bit.
Stand it on.
Let me take the
bring it on.
Let me take the science hat off here, and then just talk to you just as a person
as a dad,
incredibly opinionated dad. We're a feeling culture, and I don't think that's healthy. If you notice,
meaning what?
Means instead of using what we know to be best, we use what we feel. And think about how often people will be like, I feel like you're being mean to me. I feel like you're not being fair. I feel like this is wrong. Take feeling out of it. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it healthy? Is it not? And use your own
moral codes. Does anybody have one anymore?
Well,
I mean, the presidents don't. I mean, Bill Clinton was acting silly, and then everybody kind of made that okay. And then,
well, feelings come and go, and it's no way to base your parenting relationship, your decision. And so many people are making emotion-based decisions on everything that they do. How do I feel about what's going on? And I know I'm being very sarcastic whenever I'm saying this, but people translate that in their parenting. And we're uncomfortable because we are as socially isolated as we are. I'm uncomfortable with your emotions. So if I make you cry, then I feel bad. I did something wrong. This isn't good. Well, guess what? As a parent, you're going to make your kids cry, and that's just too bad.
And then they're going to tell you you're mean and that they hate you and all that. Don't buy it. A lot of parents go, maybe I'm doing something wrong.
Right. Buck up, because tomorrow morning they will have forgotten all about it, and you will have taught them a valuable lesson by setting a boundary or a limit on them.
Don't they subconsciously want boundaries?
Absolutely. This is something that I became very, very clear to me. Boundaries and limits say I love you. The kids
say that again.
Boundaries and limits say I love you. If you want to say to a kid, you know what, you stay up as late as you want. You go to your friend's house, and I don't care.
Stay all night on a school night. Smoke that weed, girl. Kick it.
What the kids internalize is, you don't care enough for me to set a boundary or a limit, and therefore, how much do you? My
phone is lighting up, and it's time to take a quick break. We've got a lot to talk about. I can't believe half the show's gone already. Please stay with us. We have to take a quick break. Reality Check. I'm Monica Zukas. I have John Shadowens with me. We'll be right back.